policy, making sure that the companies can also benefit from these different frameworks that are in place. So what that led us to is to also build on that experience working with companies that had been producing locally made efficient cook stoves here, and seeing how can we translate that into a nascent market like ECooking. A lot of interest was there. As the predecessors have mentioned, a lot of studies had been done over the last few years. We were pleased to also work very closely with CRIG, other testing institutes, as well as the MEX program, to really try and understand what are the opportunities, challenges, and as some of the colleagues mentioned, the barriers to really growing this ECooking space and making this technology more available to users. So we know that CRIG and MEX already did an initial feasibility study in about 2020 that was looking into understanding some of those usage aspects of electric cooking devices. But obviously we know that was still in COVID times. There were challenges around how many households participate or what scope of that study we have. So from the GIZ side, that's also where this innovation window pilot came from. We worked very closely with partners not only here in Uganda, but also from other countries that had done a bit more work on electric cooking, including Kenya, for instance, learning a lot more about what did they implement there, how did it work, what are some of those transferable and knowledge aspects that we can build into that pilot here. And so we collaborated with MEX on that pilot. And the main aim of the project was to, on the one hand, build the market intelligence for electric cooking, specifically electric pressure cookers, to understand what are the usage and consumption characteristics. For the study CRIG had done in 2020 focused primarily on Kampala and households in that area. So we wanted to see if we took this technology to regions outside of the center of Uganda, so northern Uganda, east, west. You know, we all cook different foods in the country here, so we wanted to see, could these devices be feasible to meet the cooking needs of those households in the different regions. So a lot of the study focused on building that intelligence to understand, can these products fit their cooking needs, what kind of electricity usage would work. Are they fit to market? Because for us as an energy access project, we'd be looking at, okay, if we were to try and support private sector to enter this market that's still very underdeveloped, this kind of market intelligence also helps them design better sales approaches, see how to also train their own staff to market these technologies, and also to understand where would their entry point be, what would make the best business case for them. The second pillar of the pilot also focused on, okay, once we understand a bit more about how the households cook in these different regions and can the EPCs fit that, again to my colleague SMV's point, how do we then incentivize private sector to go into this space, to upscale the access and outreach of these technologies? So the second pillar of the pilot was looking at establishing these supply chains with either existing companies or also trying to attract new entrants into the market. And the third pillar, and I think this speaks to what the moderator was saying, we're seeing this aspect of being able to share knowledge across the different stakeholders being a key aspect to also driving the clean cooking agenda forward and having this just transition. So for us, it was also really important to build in an aspect on enabling environment within that pilot, being able to share with other partners that are also working on this energy efficiency or clean cooking topic, making sure we can either share resources or also leverage what other people are doing, working with the government that was in the early stages of designing that ECooking strategy development process. So this was before Sekodo had come on board. So really trying to build that evidence-based advocacy that we could feed into these other policy frameworks and processes that were already happening. So those were some of the three areas that the pilot focused on. As part of that market intelligence that we were trying to build, as I mentioned, we looked at 4 different regions, northeast, a few in central, and also western Uganda, where we had 80 households participating in a baseline study. They were all provided with electric pressure cookers. They had to be connected to the grid. They were in urban or peri-urban centers within those regions, and they were able to use these devices to also collect data. We were working also with women-led households in there to the point of gender mainstreaming, also understanding those dynamics in the household. And we also were looking at those especially that were already using some alternative cooking methods, specifically charcoal, because also from the previous studies we were seeing that there was a lot of potential for both fuel savings, time savings, and energy savings, especially transitioning those households that were already cooking with charcoal to then move towards electricity. So we worked with those 80 households to use these devices a lot more, and some of the findings that we had included what some of the colleagues and also what the project had mentioned, that actually these EPCs turned out to be really effective in terms of meeting the household's cooking needs. They could actually cook in all these regions, northeast, with the various foods they had. The EPCs were able to cook almost 90% of all the foods that they were already cooking. So it didn't really change their cooking experience in that way. So for us, that was already really good insights to see and be able to share with potential companies who want to take up e-cooking as part of their business model. So they were very efficient. They were able to save over 63% in terms of dropping the use of charcoal that they were previously using before transitioning to these electric pressure cookers. We also found that they were time saving, so really looking into on-the-ground data to corroborate these assumptions that various stakeholders had been making. So it was really impactful and also informed some of the other upscale efforts that we've been trying to do. So we're able to share those findings through various forums and workshops with different stakeholders, including the ministry, and that also informed their process on designing the approach together with MEX on developing the e-cooking strategy. And so as part of that, some of the recommendations that came out where we saw there's still potential to improve. As some of the colleagues have mentioned, awareness and perceptions were still quite low in some of these areas. Obviously, by virtue of them going through this pilot, those households were able to understand more in terms of savings potential and others, and were honestly being cooking champions and ambassadors within the regions where they were. So they were also saying, there's a very good opportunity to move away from charcoal to electric cooking. So the market potential is still there, but still underdeveloped. There are not yet as many suppliers in the space who are offering quality products, who are also offering products that are fit to market here. A lot of the products are still imported, so they may have user interfaces and menu options that are not necessarily tailored to the Ugandan market. So when we looked at supporting the supply chain establishment, we wanted to work with companies who also wanted to either test out different business models, understand what kind of flexible payment options they could offer to the users to address those affordability gaps. We were also looking at how can they enter new regions, move away from this central space where maybe there's a bit more access already. So some of the companies that we worked with were offering credit options for how users could afford these EPCs. Others were working in mini-grid areas where there was already sometimes surplus electricity, and trying to see how they can work with them and the developers to get the households to utilize more of the electricity through also electric cooking. Another one of the companies that we worked with was also looking to develop an electric pressure cooker specifically for the Ugandan market. So tailor the user interface to cooking dishes here that the households are familiar with, so it has matoke on there, beans and others, to also then make that very user friendly. So there's a few aspects that the companies have been able to take up. But the last point was also on, as much as we're building those supply chains and working with the government on enabling environment, a key aspect, as some of the colleagues have mentioned, is how do we also build the readiness of these companies to take up these different opportunities. So we've also been doing a lot of capacity building work, supporting them with business development aspects, so for them to improve their financial management, their gender mainstreaming throughout their operations as well, in terms of getting them more investment ready to be able to access all these different opportunities that were also mentioned in the previous session.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll invite Dr. Will to, having heard about the barriers and what different partners are doing to address these barriers, which are really great initiatives. Could you just tell us, to wrap it up before we turn it over to the audience, and just tell us what's happening on a global level in terms of promotion or pushing ECooking long term, and what role MEX is actually playing in this. So please tell us about the Global ECooking Coalition for us to understand better. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. Hello everyone, my name is Will Clements. I'm working for MEX, Modern Energy Cooking Services. Briefly to introduce MEX and then to get straight on to what Agnes has asked me to talk about. MEX is an 8-year research program funded by UK Aid that aims to enable the transition towards truly clean cooking, modern energy cooking in MEX on electric cooking. Because of the amazing gains that we've been seeing in electricity access and quality over recent years, leveraging those gains to actually use that electricity for cooking, and now seeing that the charcoal costs can be transferred to ECooking and actually save people money in a number of countries and contexts. So this has been built on great research, for instance done by Creek, and we've been supporting and working with a large number of partners on great initiatives. I won't go into too much detail, but to say that of course we've been working with other members of the panel, Sekodu on the ECooking strategy, NDEV market assessment, and the innovation pilot, a number of other things. We've been working very closely with the Ministry of Energy on the enabling environment, supporting the ECooking strategy, working towards standards and looking at other incentives. We've been working a lot with UNACC, who have been instrumental in awareness raising recently, conducting, I think, at least 12 cooking exhibitions just this year, raising awareness of the benefits of modern energy cooking. With UMEME very closely on a pilot project which is kicking off very shortly to get more data on how EPCs are used, to understand the ECooking tariff that was introduced by ERA and gain more data on that, and to raise awareness in the country and therefore create more demand. We know there is this awareness gap that continues, so we need to create ECooking champions, spread the message, raise the awareness, and therefore create the demand which can then be addressed. So to go on to GECO, so this is the Global ECooking Coalition, and bringing together all of the great work that we've been hearing about today. There is this exciting opportunity through GECO. So GECO is a coalition. It's a coalition of ECooking advocates. And the aim of GECO is to get ECooking from a niche to the mainstream. And that's rapidly scaling ECooking from a low level to a high level across a wide number of countries. GECO has 4 anchor partners, so NDEV, GAP, SC for All, and MEX. But it's very much not limited to those partners. GECO encourages membership from all sector players and wants all the voices in the sector to be heard and to be part of this coalition. So what will the coalition do? Well, to firstly say the initial target is that by 2030 GECO wants to accelerate and upscale ECooking so that it is the cooking fuel of choice for more than 10% of the population across 10 different countries. GECO will be formally launched at COP in a few weeks' time, but to explain a little bit about what it will do, GECO will be able to pool knowledge, expertise, resources, and leadership, and GECO will align the efforts of these anchor partners and of key companies and organisations in the sector in the same direction. So all working together on this same goal to rapidly upscale ECooking. So exactly how will that happen? Well, it's still in its formative stages. It's still being ironed out. but I can say that there is a 3-stage plan for how Gecko will operate. So once it's formally launched, once things are formally kicked off, stage 1, countries that are interested in working with Gecko, there will be a readiness assessment conducted in those countries. This is already happening in Uganda. We're fortunate in that we've got this incredible work on the ECooking strategy that this readiness assessment can be built on and can draw upon. So yeah, number 1, readiness assessment. So what is the state of play in the country? What is the state of the enabling environment, the supply chain, consumer awareness? And then from that, stage 2 is the creation of a country activation plan. And what that means is exactly how can ECooking be scaled in these countries. The 3rd stage of Gecko would be delivery of this activation plan. So what that means is Gecko can use its networks and its membership of far beyond just the anchor partners, but lots of other organizations, and use those networks to enable this activation plan to be funded. That is the 3-stage plan of Gecko. That funding would be from a number of sources that hopefully the Gecko network would be able to access. So that's carbon buyers, donor organizations, and a wide range of other organizations, governments, but all pulling in the same direction to work out how to rapidly scale ECooking. I want to touch on carbon finance briefly, just to say that we think that will be a huge aspect of the rapid scaling of ECooking. Electric cooking is very suited to carbon finance because you can measure how much electricity people are using. There's this new gold standard metered methodology. So therefore what we can get is high integrity carbon credits. And there is already a carbon deal for electric cooking in the country through Up Energy, and MEX and Gecko will be working with the Ugandan government, with the Ministry of Energy, and with other ministries on working out how to support access to carbon finance, how to get a good deal for the country. A deal that makes that rapidly scales ECooking, but does so in a fair way, so creating a diversified market and enabling all key players in the sector to have a place and a voice. I will just finish by saying that Gecko wants to build on everything that's already happening. So all of the great initiatives that we've heard already. We've also heard from UECCC about the Energy Access Scale project, which is very exciting. So Gecko wants to work alongside these initiatives to bring about that rapid scaling. And I think I'll stop there, but please do come and talk to me about MEX and about Gecko. Thank you, Agnes.
Thank you all our panelists. I want to turn it over to the audience. It would be great to hear any additions from the audience on how we can have a scale up of clean cooking or e-cooking within our urban centers in Uganda, and any burning questions, but otherwise maybe you can meet the team one-on-one. So we'll just take stage 2. Thank you. We'll take a question from 2 ladies.
Thank you. Rana Nahakoy from Smart TV. I'm glad to be here because this is a space that I've covered for a while, so I'm a bit covered with the topic. Mr. Jacob made a point that they intend to, look at them as people that are focusing in this space. They intend to, so that there is no confusion, and for them to be able to cut the gaps, they intend to strategize on what areas each of them should focus. And I would like to know from JSA, SNB, MEX, how do you intend to go about it? Because the goal is one, for people to use, pressure cookers and the like, but what is the goal? How are you going to strategize between the new partners and enable yourselves so that all of you end up, getting the same goal, but not, playing in the same space? Because you have one goal, but you're playing in the same space, and you want to cover the gaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Victoria Konganji from Renewable Energy. Thank you, the panelists. I'll add on what has been said and maybe emphasize MEX and SNV. You're doing a good job spreading awareness on clean cooking, specifically the electric pressure cooker. Many of us, we just hear, but we don't even know how it looks like or whether it really saves or whether it won't explode. Okay? So I'm just emphasizing again, as you are building these programs and building capacity for the suppliers, please emphasis is on awareness. Awareness, and not just saying electric pressure cooker says, but how does it actually do, what's the evidence, and most importantly, how to use it. Because most of us say, even if we bought it, we're afraid to leave it at home for the home managers to use. So awareness, I can't emphasize it enough, and training and looking after it so that it lasts a long time. Not everything from China is a fake. I use a pressure cooker from China. It is good quality. Okay, so it's just how you handle. You can get a good quality thing and you misuse it and it goes, yeah. So awareness. Nobody's creating awareness about smartphones because we all know the purpose. Okay, so yeah, awareness.
The one from Mr. Jacob, you talked about supply of these EPCs. From the professor, the pre-current speaker talked about supply being one of the major challenges. Me being the technical manager in the lab I'm heading at Sakodu, when we tested an EPC at one time, the staff and all the people who witnessed the testing loved the EPC. We made an order of 50 EPCs by then. They were all consumed by the staff and other neighbors who had seen the testing. When that order was exhausted, other people now in our homes who come visit us, they liked the EPCs. We made other orders up to date. When you contact the supplier, they say we shall get in February, we shall get in January. So it is a very big challenge. The supply EPCs, people have loved them, but before we look at villages, even in the central itself, the supply has not exhausted the market. So we need to look at that so fundamentally. You talked of the 13 entities which you have helped under the Cataric Fund, and 7 which you have helped under the result-based fund. I don't know if we have empowered those ones to start supplying EPCs, or it is still under ways how we want them to put these EPCs in the market. And if they are there, we as the people, end users who want to access these EPCs, how do we know these 13 entities you empowered to supply EPCs? If we want EPCs, currently I can mention like 2 or 3 suppliers which I know, and which whenever I go there, they have run out of stock. So maybe make us aware of these other entities which supply EPCs, such that if our families and other people want EPCs, we can just go and pick. The question that I want to pose to Dr. Will is about the power, the technical bit of it. When you look at the EPCs, the ones I have at home, the consumption is 1,000 watts. When I wanted to buy more 2 EPCs for my second wife, I found that the power consumption had increased to 1,200 watts. I have a worry by 2 years from now, as the EPCs, the liters keep upgrading, maybe the power consumption will also become higher, which may lose value of cleaner energies and energy efficient EPCs.
And you lose your second wife.
Thank you, Mr. Sebuja. Sorry, I'm sure there are very many questions and we don't have time, so I'll just allow the panelists to just briefly tackle the questions that apply to them in like 1 minute each.
Yeah, thank you very much, Agnes. First of all, I want to thank again all the participants for these very important comments and questions. The first one was from Ronald about lack of understanding and general awareness about the cooking tariff. I think those are some of the recommendations for the strategy that we need to really create mass awareness, conduct mass awareness campaigns. To that than just awareness, of course the tariff has been there, but the issue which we discovered is about the threshold. You know, it is ranging from the consumption in terms of kilowatt hours, 81 to 150. So I think the low-income earners, which we mentioned earlier, I think may not reach that minimum threshold. So probably there's also opportunity to review to ensure that those low-income earners can benefit and be able to afford the electricity bill. EPCs, yes, the strategy proposes many options for awareness, including even having demonstrations, you know, a lot of cooking demonstrations so that people see the EPC in action, even TV shows. So a lot of those are coming, and exhibitions and even participation in various social gatherings, including schools, sports events, even in faith-based organizations, the churches, you know, many people come there, the mosque and so on. So all these are there, and then looking at what I will say the change agents, what we call influencers, you know, picking people who can demonstrate that this thing works, and then people see, you know, they are role models which can be used, and they can help with this awareness. Issues of quality, there is already work being done by National Bureau of Standards to come up with the standards for ECooking technologies. So we hope that process will be concluded soon enough. And also the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development is already working on the energy efficiency and conservation bill. I think it has reached some high stage. Probably the other regulations we want to be included may now can be included also for ECooking, the aspects, issues to do with registration, for example, of importers, distributors, you know, issues to do with occupational health and safety, and many other relevant issues to do with ECooking can also be included in that energy efficiency and conservation bill. There was also, from Daniel still, the issue of e-waste management. There is already, there are companies already involved in that. For example, we have Resilient Energy Africa. They're already doing that. They are trying to reuse certain parts, you know, of these appliances, you know. But we are going to do massive awareness, you know. We plan to do massive awareness to increase awareness of the people so that the collection and all the handling, you know, is done properly. Of course, there are already laws on waste management in this country, so we just enforce certain aspects of those laws. I think those are basically, yeah, the rest are really awareness, which the ministry is going to do.
All right, doctors, again, done as justice. We'll start from, there are quite three of them, but I know Victoria will also add on to them. All what you have asked, audience, thank you very much. Just presents opportunities for all of us. And it's good that in this room we approach different players. So I saw an area of supply. That already presents an opportunity for the SMEs who are already dealing in clean cooking to start rethinking of business models and financing models around the e-cooking technologies. You could have been on firewood, you could have been on LPG. How do you start thinking around that? Because there is a market, there is an opportunity. A financing institution who is here, you already know that these are starting companies, but there is a huge market. How do you already leverage on that and start to say, how do we get a facility specifically on e-cooking so that these guys have some upfront financing to order these things from China, to order these things from any other country that is producing them? I think there are opportunities. And to my brother from the SME world, where we say, sometimes we have these funds, but the conditions our SMEs cannot meet them. We realize that and we recognize that. But one important thing we're also learning is if we really want participation of the local SMEs, possibly we may have to tweak the chain in which we're saying we do BDS after, where we would actually start with business development support so that we graduate you to the next stage of absorbing these funds. So we recognize these challenges, that we bring you in, but somewhere, somehow, doesn't just work out. But everything presents an opportunity, so let's get there. Lastly, this particular sector is ripe, and we're saying if it's ripe, the only answer to addressing all these challenges is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. So the purpose of the Energy Efficiency Accelerator Network, launched and led by the ministry, is to see how we collaborate together and start to see ourselves move to scale and the impact we all want to achieve. Because that's the goal in which all of us as development partners, research institutions want to see, that ECooking is out there and the urban and the peri-urban population moves, and this whole issue of biodiversity getting out starts to be addressed by the market forces. Thank you. Victoria will add.
Thank you so much to the colleagues also for those additions. I just wanted to touch on a couple of points on the ECooking supply chain. We recognize that that's definitely an issue, and as we mentioned, it's still a nascent and growing market. So I think we also have to understand that to get to that place where we all want to be, there's still steps we have to go through. There's no way we can jump from where we are now to where solar is at the same stage in a very short period. I think we all recognize also those growing pains and learning curves that that market also had to go through, and that's why we're all here in this room to also see how do we learn from that to maybe also shorten how that period can go. But I wanted to touch on a few opportunities also that are coming up from the GIZ side. To this point, yes, we've done the ECooking pilot with players there, but again, speaking to this point of upscale, we also have a new project called the Higher Tier Cooking Component Project, where we're implementing it together with CLASP, which is an organization that's done a lot on standards and testing for ECooking devices. They had a Global Leap Awards a few years ago where they tested out different EPC suppliers and things like that. So I would also encourage the SMEs to look that up for those that are looking for opportunities to incorporate ECooking into their business models. There's an existing roster of products that have been tested that you can also link with those suppliers to see about getting those in country. And as well, we are developing financing models for SMEs to also build this pipeline of distributors and suppliers in the ECooking space. So please do look out for those calls for proposals. They will be published on the different Renewable Energy Association websites and platforms. For those of you here that are not members, please do join them. I was hearing questions around, when are the next application windows? How do we find this out? I encourage you to please join your respective energy association. A lot of the development partners and people in this space that are offering these funding opportunities and others use those platforms because they are also closer to you as private sector and members. So please do look out for those. So there will be a few coming up where you can look into will that funding fit your needs? There will be aspects around innovative business models, around R&D. Are you looking to develop an ECooking device fit for market? Like there's opportunities to apply under such funding mechanisms. There will also be areas around testing out business models. We know that for some of these, it's also difficult for the suppliers to take that up. So please do look out for those. Thank you.
Thanks to my colleagues. Thanks for the questions. Very briefly, on the ECooking tariff, the upcoming UMEME pilot EPC project is hoping to collect data on EPC usage using smart meters from A2EI, which can be used to then assess the ECooking tariff and potentially review it. On awareness, yes, we need much more awareness. UNACC is doing great work, cooking exhibitions. I also want to acknowledge Victoria Omehanji, her work as part of the Shamba Shape Up ECooking videos. Please go to the MEX YouTube channel to see Victoria starring in some ECooking awareness videos there. So there's continuous effort there. I know that the Ministry of Energy is working hard on labelling and certification of ECooking appliances, which is obviously very important, as is e-waste management. A colleague of mine at MEX is devoted to e-waste management, so I want you to know that is being addressed. Question on quality of EPCs from my colleague at Sokodu. Innovation is continuously happening on that front. The insulation of EPCs means that they are very efficient, and even for higher sizes, the power rating is relatively low. So that will just continue, that innovation, that improvement. Lastly, to say about aligning efforts, making sure that all of these organisations, our organisations, are working together and not duplicating. I want to say that GECCO, the Global ECooking Coalition, will help with that. Will be making sure that everyone is working together but not duplicating. And I encourage all the organisations to join. Obviously, NDEV is an anchor partner, and we hope that SNV will be interested in joining the coalition. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you all for being part of this session. And as we leave, each of the panelists will just give us one keyword as a takeaway from this room as we leave the stage.